Thank you for joining us at Community on Demand. Today's message is presented by Dr. Rich Bustraan. Rich has written 2 books that are available on Amazon, The Story of the Bible and The Jesus People Movement. Rich holds a bachelor's degree in management, a Master of Divinity, and a PhD. Rich is also an adjunct professor at Grace School of Theology and teaches the adult Bible class on Sunday mornings at Community Church. This message was recorded during a live Sunday morning service. Let's join Rich as he begins his message.
Hey, I want to talk about hospitality this morning. So, in my weird way of doing Bible study, we will get into a Bible verse here or there. I'm just going to use a couple of verses, but one word. I like to take a text. I like to take stories. I love Bible stories. So I'm not looking at Bible stories this morning, a Bible story, and pulling it apart, because I just find that's just a lot of fun. It's what I like to do. I want to talk about hospitality. And so perhaps to begin, I should say thank you for those of you on the meal train that have been bringing food our way on a Tuesday. Hospitality. Thank you. I would like to look at this word though this morning, and I'm going to approach it, and we're going to get to some Bible verses, so you can open a Bible if you want. I've got my verses up here if you just want to follow along. But this word hospitality that we say in English, we're going to get to the Greek word in a minute. That's what we do in church. So the English word actually comes from a Latin word, hospitality. It's where we get our word hospital from, and hospice, and hotel. Those kinds of words come from this. So I would like to look at what it actually is. And so to begin, I'll begin with English language. Not American language, but English language. And one thing I found fascinating in living in England for 18 years is not accents. You quickly get past that. And England has more regionalization of accents than we have here. We have a southern accent and a northern accent or a California accent, or I don't know, there's a few. England is very, very regionalized, and people know where you're from right away because of how you talk. But the usage of words is just another issue altogether. Word usage. And so we'll get to hospitality in a moment, don't worry. So I'm going to quiz you, but I'm just going to walk through this quiz quickly for the sake of time, so that we're not here for too long. But that little thing you see on the screen with all that stuff inside of there, we call rubbish. Exactly. And that thing there that you sweep up bits of rubbish off the floor is called okay, dustpan. You got that one right. All right, and this thing right here then that you put the bits of rubbish into is called the dustbin. Thank you, or for short, the bin. And then we have these black things that go inside the bin, and they are called, of course, bin liners. And then we have this thing that goes outside, and this is, once again, a rubbish bin, or it could just be the bin for short. And this thing that also rubbish goes in, not to be confused with the rubbish bin, is called a wheelie bin, of course, because it's got wheels. There you go. And what do we call these people that come by twice a week to collect all of our rubbish? We call them dustmen. Thank you. It's fitting with a dustpan, and dust goes into the dustbin, and dustmen. So then there's this thing here that when you need to put a lot of rubbish inside of, or you're remodeling your home, you go and you get one of these. This is called a skip, as it says on the side. Number one. By the way, this is just to grab this image off the internet. That 0121 identifies it as Birmingham. That's the city we lived in for all those years. There you go. I don't know what company that is. Anyway, skip. And if you need one, you, of course, hire a skip. So, and finally, in the end of the day, when you get all your rubbish and it goes somewhere that they dump all this stuff, and that, of course, is called the tip. Good job. You guys are doing really well. And of course, if the tip is closed and you don't know what to do with all your rubbish and you dump it on the side of the road illegally, it's called fly tipping. 50,000 pound fine. They take it very seriously. My dad was in England the one time and saw the sign fly tipping. He said, okay. Flies, bzz, tipping, that's what you do at a restaurant, but we don't tip in England. So what is this? That's illegal dumping. Don't ask, Dad. Don't ask. It's just illegal dumping. Fly tipping. It's what they call it. So there are words in a language that can immediately make you realize that you're part of an out group. We're going somewhere with this. Hospitality, right? There's an in group, there's an out group. Now, when I say these words, I don't want you to right away, which we do as Americans, we get really serious. We engage in sort of kind of a negative approach on this. This is just life. Everywhere you go, there's in groups and out groups. Now, sometimes it doesn't matter. Sometimes it matters a little more. Sometimes it matters a lot. But hospitality starts to touch on this word, this concept. So why the language thing? Because I could be a white guy living in England where most people are white, and I speak English language. Well, I've learned English language. I've rid my vocabulary of many Americanisms, at least while I was there. And I could be checking out at the till at Tesco. You know what that is. And as I'm walking through, and the person at the till says, "That'll be £5 then, please." And I said, "Oh, thanks. How's your day going?" Which is not really something you do in England, is ask the person at the till how their day is going. But anyway, as you do, and then they say, "Oh, you're a Yank. How long you over here for?" "Oh, 18 years. Whoa, okay. Now we're into another realm. What do you do for a living? Why are you over here? Culture, right? So if I don't want to talk to them, I'll say I'm a minister at a church. In the conversation, you'll see the face go, "Oh, okay, £5 then, please." But if I want to open the conversation, I say, "I'm a charity director," which I was. We had started a charity. I was a charity director. So it depends on whether you want to talk to people or not, And that's just up to you. But right away, nobody's being unkind. Nobody's being unfriendly. Nobody's saying, "You're not one of us." But the accent, I can use all the right words, but the accent. They hear my accent, and you're a Yank. And by the way, it doesn't mean you're from the North. It's just any American, you're a Yank. Sorry, people from Texas, you're now a Yank. You're a Yankee. So anyway, real quickly, you can feel like you're in the out group, and sometimes that matters, sometimes it doesn't. It's not always that we're trying to be so harsh and bad about this thing of us and them, this in and out group stuff. And we have this language. It's one of us and one of them. So if this lady at the till is collecting my money, she says Yank, it's one of them. Right? And she doesn't mean anything bad by that. It's just, it's what you do. It's what you do when you live somewhere else. So I lived somewhere else for a while too. And it's real easy to pick out the them. This is in Chad, Africa. Which one is the them? Exactly right. It's the guy in the middle because he doesn't have a staff. No, it's the guy on the far right. Now, don't be afraid to say this, but skin color is a real quick way that we see who's in and who's out. And I don't mean that. Please, pause right there. Pause. We're not going to run down the route that people get into in our country of racism. I'm not interested. When you live in Africa, nobody's being racism. Nobody's being a racist here. Nobody. They're not. I'm not. It's just you stand out. You're white, and they're not. So right away, you're an outsider. And so we're going somewhere with this conversation. Don't forget, this is my roundabout way of getting into conversations. And it's just my way of introducing this topic of hospitality and what I have learned about hospitality over the years. So here I am in the island of Cyprus. Now I'm with a white guy here, so I might look like I fit in. But my wife and I took a little mini holiday. We went down the Mediterranean, a bunch of different countries there on holiday in the summertime with the kids. It was a cheap getaway. You could stay somewhere for a week or two and turn your phones off and sleep on the beach and sleep and eat and sleep and eat. So that's what I like to do. I go on vacation. Sorry. Anyway, we went up to this town in Cyprus, up in the mountains, and we went in this museum. And there's a guy up there, and he came out, and he happens to be a local mayor. And so he says, "Oh, you're Xenos. You guys know enough Greek, right? Anybody watch My Big Fat Greek Wedding?" Xenos, foreigners, yeah. So in Greek, you have a word for foreigners. We have a word for foreigners in English language. It's called foreigner. And there's a time when you can ask people that question. It's very normal. It's very fair. I get my hair cut a while ago. Some lady, she's obviously not from here. I said, "Where are you from?" "From Vietnam." "Oh, tell me about Vietnam. I love Vietnamese people. They're just incredible people," and blah, 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 blah. There's a time when you may not want to accentuate that, right? Because you don't want to play on that. So anyway, Zeno. Very good. He's a Zeno. Okay, hey, welcome. Paphos. Paphos, they've got to be the nicest people I've ever met in my life. Don't get me started. We're at 11:15. By the way, we're doing a different timing here on Sunday, so have I got a little extra time? Oh, thank you.
Another hour.
2 hours. So anyway, this gentleman came out. He happens to be a local mayor, and he says, "Oh, we like to welcome Xenos anytime they're in Paphos. And what we do is we peel oranges, so you can see the oranges. He's peeled the oranges there. I was there with Arthi. She was taking the photo. And then they have this thing called Zivania. Zivania, it's a fermented drink. I like to serve all the foreigners. You can see the Zivania sitting at the table. So of course he comes with Zivania and peels oranges, and we had Zivania and peeled oranges. And he makes me feel, hey, you're a Seno, but you're welcome here. Right? You see where we're going with this. We're heading toward hospitality. We really are. All right. Which one of these things doesn't belong here? Can you see in this picture? This is my wife's more immediate family on a picture taken, I don't know when, maybe back in 2011, 13, somewhere in there. So this is a guy up on the far left who is not a Kasi. And these are her people, the Kasi people. And what I learned with her culture is what I've learned with a lot of other cultures, including our American culture. We have something called hospitality. And that hospitality for her people is really important. If you are not hospitable, it is very shameful for your family and shameful on the culture. Just like my mayor friend from Paphos. If he's not hospitable to the Seno, it's shameful on the Paphos people. They want to be the Cypriots there. They want to be kind and hospitable. So in my wife's culture, they have a little nut. It's called a betel nut. And that betel nut is different from other places in India. And they serve it with a leaf and with lime. And that's like chewing gum. It's your bare minimum basic you offer anyone who comes to your house. And when somebody arrives, they say one brio. People are here. And so first thing they'll do is bring people in and sit them, and they bring out kwai, fresh cut kwai with lime. And if you eat that lime and leaf, it's got a bit of a special thing it does to your mind. It gives you a little buzz. So anyway, so there's that, and there's drinking tea, deet sha, they say in their language. So these are the basics. From there, you have food. My wife has explained with her culture that at times when they were growing up, they would have people come, one brio, and they would just be getting ready to eat their dinner. And so you welcome them in, you give them kwai, you give them tea, and you share your food. Sometimes that means cutting all your portions in half, but they do that. And so she was taught, even if it costs, giving up your food, Christmas time, just a couple of little things here. We're going somewhere with this conversation. Enjoy with me. And by the way, it sounds just a little bit too much. I don't know if it can come back just a bit, a little bit tinny and harsh. At Christmas time, I was used to getting lots of gifts. And it's a very private time. We would wake up in the morning and open up all of our gifts. And I can remember as a kid growing up, I thought everybody grew up this way. There's your Christmas tree in the corner. You go to bed, you wake up, and there's gifts under the tree, packed out under the tree, filling the living room. New bikes and whatever else you got, Hot Wheels toys. And I thought everybody did that. So when we were in England, and one of our first Christmases there, we were missionaries. We're on a missionary budget. I think I've shared this story with Sunday school. I don't know at the church here, but we were on a missionary budget, didn't have a lot of money. Don't feel bad for us. It's just how you live as a missionary. And so it was the night before Christmas, when all through the house, not a creature was stirring except for me, and I was wrapping up gifts. And I had this packet, this little bit of gifts for our oldest daughter, for our son, youngest daughter. Little bits of gifts. They might have had like 10 small things. I'm telling you the truth. I'm sorry. I'm a selfish human, a greedy materialist growing up as a kid. I was nearly in tears. I was thinking, look at me. What kind of a father am I to give a Christmas like this with a few measly gifts for my kids? Really, no joke. I was almost in tears when into the room burst my wife. Boom, door opens. Wow, she says, look at all the gifts these kids get. All the gifts. It put it all in perspective. Now, it's not an issue of poverty and wealth. It's an issue that for hospitality, for them now as a Christian family in India, You open up your home on Christmas Day. You make a lot of food and you go to church. When you get home from church, your friends and family are going to come by and you can tell them about Jesus and you feed them food because you're being hospitable. You're welcoming the visitors into your home. It's that opportunity. So anyway, learned a lot of stuff. Here in this culture, we have what we call Southern hospitality. And, my desire today is not to lecture you, to whip you or scold you. I also don't want to just pat you on the back and say you're doing a good job. You figure it out, okay? You figure out how you're doing with these words. You figure out how we're doing as a church. And again, I don't want to scold, but I don't want to just alleviate you where the Lord might be wanting to poke you and prod you and nudge you a little bit. So we're going to look at some words together. So we have this word hospitality. I'm going to define it for you. I'm going to define it using a Bible verse. This is from Romans 12:13. This is my kind of Bible verse. 2 words. 2 words. You can memorize that one. Practice hospitality. Practice hospitality. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to focus on just an element of this. There is a really beautiful theological piece to hospitality. Think about this. Where God is the host. God is the one who invites you into His home and with food. And hospitality prepares a place for you. So many verses, we could get lost on a different tangent with God being the host and practicing hospitality with you. Welcoming you and me in, the foreigner into His home, the stranger, the outsider, welcoming us in. But we're not going to go that route. I want to look at our route and just some of the practicality of this. So practicing hospitality, there's our word. In Greek, unlike Latin, the word is 2 words brought together, philoxenia, or xenien in this particular text here. Philo, and that is your word for love, brotherly love. Some of you have been around church long enough, you will know this. Brotherly love, acts of kindness. Okay. And so we mix that with this word, which is xenia, or xenos, or xenien, which has to do with strangers, foreigners. It could simply mean visitors, guests, or outsiders. So I like that word. Isn't that kind of nice? Philoxenian. Showing acts of kindness to people that are thems. They may be a bit outside. They might be a guest. Might be a complete and utter foreigner. Might be a visitor. So when we see a larger context of this in the Bible, it emphasizes your home and food. Your home and food. So it's a normal thing for people all over the world to open their house and serve food. That's hospitality. I'm going to distinguish this from a couple of other words in just a moment as we go. But keep that in mind. Keep that in mind. It's food, it's your home, and it's opening up those things to people who are guests, foreigners, outsiders. So what it does is it helps when your home is open and you serve food, or, as we're going to look at in a moment, maybe a few other things that might help us in church life. It takes people that are on that outside group and it moves us closer to them with food, with your home. Simple, easy peasy, not a difficult concept. Now, if we were to look at service, serving the Lord, and what is your ministry and your service, it's possible to do very well at serving, but what you're doing is you're just executing the plan. Service is executable. So you might say, let's take it, for example, into a restaurant. How many times have you gone to eat somewhere and they say table for 2, table for 3, and they're looking at you to figure if your party is larger. They bring it to your seat and your host will come in just a moment. And so on comes your host. Have you tried our menu here? Can I show you this? Can I show you that? It's all meant to make you feel welcomed into their restaurant. But frankly, for most of us, it's just part of what happens in a restaurant experience. It's not really warming or whatever. They could just as well put the menu down and say, what do you want? But you could do all of that. Without hospitality, you're just executing the service. So hospitality is what adds warmth. It's what makes us feel included. It's what makes people feel at home. It's that sense of warmth that comes with it. We could say there's a cousin word to hospitality called fellowship, but don't be confused with this one. So please pause with me here for a moment. Consider what I'm saying. Fellowship has to do with the thing that we have some union around. So in church, we use that word to mean that we fellowship around Christ. We have a common Christian experience. I know the Lord. I'm saved. I'm growing in Him. I've got my troubles and problems and things I'm walking through. And that's a common experience of another believer. And so we get together and we fellowship. So you could, if it helps you to understand the word fellowship, because it's really not a word we use much outside of church anymore. If I were to ask anybody here, did you use the word fellowship this week? You were down at HEB, you were going to buy some bagels, and you're talking to the bakery guy, and you said, fellowship. And the guy at the bakery says, bagels. And it's just not part of our normal vocabulary, so it's a very Christianized word. But let me put it this way. Do you like the Houston Astros? Do you like the Astros enough that you wear the paraphernalia or the gear? What do we call it in America? You buy the jersey, and we call it a jersey? Yeah, you buy the jersey, you listen to the podcast every day, even if there's not an Astros game on, because you just want to hear. Or if you're into golf, then you go to the club and you pay your fees and you golf and you hang out with people that golf and you know all the terms and you're talking about all the latest players. So somebody who's not into golf and hangs out with you and your buddies or buddiettes, if you're a female golfer, they're going to feel a little bit outside because they don't golf. I don't golf. Sorry, just had no interest in chasing a little white ball around in my free time. Just me. So I'm going to feel a little outside if you're with your buddies and you're golfers and your fellowship is around golfing and all you talk is golf. So you can see that if we put that in a Christian context, the sense of fellowship around Christianity gives us some identity and purpose. But fellowship, pay attention to this, without hospitality, minus the hospitality, we end up with cliques. You know the word cliques, right? Little special interest groups within the church who care very little about the one who is not a regular attender, who's not the person who's used to being there, who doesn't know how it works at this particular brand of Christian church or whatever. So once again, I don't want to scold at people here. I don't want to relieve you. Just talking general terms. It's very possible within Christianity to end up with little cliques, our little group of folks we like to get together with. And when the outsiders come in, we sort of stare and watch. And hospitality is that bridge. Hospitality is that thing that goes out of your way to take the step to welcome the individual who's coming from the outside. So we might see a few Bible verses that help us with this. Hebrews 13:2 says, "Do not forget to show hospitality to strangers." Hey, there's the whole concept in one thing. For so by doing, you have shown hospitality to angels without knowing it. You ever think of that one? And any of you ever had me in your house? You had an angel without knowing it. I'm just kidding. All right. I'm not that proud. Anyway, not yet. I'm working on it. But, interesting concept right there. But there's that thing of showing hospitality. Do not forget. So Romans is practice hospitality. All y'all practice hospitality. That's the idea. Here, all y'all, everybody, there's no special categories, show hospitality to those that are on the outside. Just let that sink in for a moment. We live in a city that's very diverse. What effort are we making to invite people in? In New York, when my wife was attending university there, she began to work with international students, although she herself was an international student. And she was amazed because she met a man from North Africa, from Algeria, and she was talking to him. He was a student too. And she said, "Have you ever been into an American home?" They mean people like us that are not the foreigners. This is our home, our country, right? And so, have you ever been in at Christmas time? And he said, "Oh, no, I've never been in an American home." "How many years you been here?" 4 years. So once again, I don't want to just scold us. I don't want to necessarily just alleviate us of anything, but we have a lot of foreigners here who are students, foreigners from other countries that are visiting. And sometimes they don't know anything about the gospel. And if you don't know what to say, a hospitality bridge without saying much else is a great bridge. So this is the sort of person we should be, extending that hospitality. Now here we see in Titus and Timothy that it's actually a qualification of a leader. A leader in a church should have an open home. We should all have been in there, had some food in there, visited. I like this one because it says offer hospitality to each other without grumbling. I like that. I really do. Because this moves beyond just the theory of having people in your house. So my wife, being a hospitality bug and being a missionary, had people in our house all the time. If she was in a better health state today, every one of you would have been in the home. Some of you have been. Every one of you would have been once or twice or three times. House was always open. Sometimes my eyes were tired. More people. Here we go. Okay, people are coming in. We're showing hospitality. And through that, we get to share the gospel. We get to minister to people that are believers. But it's possible when people come by that she says, so-and-so is coming by. And you go, oh, I don't like that person. I'm a missionary. I'm sorry. I'm just being honest. Sometimes I say, oh, man, that guy always rubs me the wrong way. His theology's different. Or he's always complaining about something like me. So, but I think there's a verse here that I really like that I think applies here. It's from Proverbs. I love this verse. Don't eat with people who are stingy. Don't desire their delicacies, the nice foods that they have, not just their common everyday stuff. They are always thinking about how much it costs. So, I just love that verse because that's how many years ago that was written. That means way back then. It's just like people today. You go to their house and you get the impression that they're being hospitable, but really as you're eating food, they're kind of offering you drinks, right? Well, we've got water and we've got Coca-Cola or water or some really nice iced tea or water. It's free. It's not bottled. It's out of the tap. It's free. And so as you're sitting there eating, they're almost like pencil and paper. You eat more food. He wants more. And as a good host, you always go back and you offer seconds, right? That's what I learned with my wife's culture. If someone comes back to give you food in her culture and you've had one plate and you got a little bit left, right? If you eat it all, that's indirect communication. I want more. And they'll always come and say, would you like some more? And you say, no. Polite to refuse once. Have some more. Polite to refuse twice. No. And they say, no, have more. And they start shoveling food on your plate, right? So this is part of what you do. By the way, as a little hiatus here, I didn't know that's how my wife's culture was. And that's a very common cultural practice around the world. You offer, it's refused. You offer, refuse, then you take it. Because on the receiver's side, if you take it first time, how are you? What kind of person are you? Greedy. Greedy. I'm not hungry. Yeah, that's true too. But greedy. Would you like some food? Yes. Would you like seconds? Yes. Ooh, okay. You're supposed to say no. You're supposed to say no once and no. Don't go out of your way. No. Please do. No. It's too much trouble already. You've given me so much. It's tasty. I'm just so full. Have more. No. Okay. It's just what goes on. I didn't know this. So when I was first going out with my wife, it's a long story, but she didn't like me. And she found me very annoying and needed a ride to South Florida. So she talked to a friend of hers, Indian friend that lived 20 minutes up the street from us in Boca Raton in Florida. Her friend said, there's this guy called Rich. He lives up the road. Why don't you get a ride with him? If you want to come, she wanted to see the beaches of South Florida. Indian girl wants to see the beaches of South Florida, right? So her friend said, you got to ask this guy Rich. So she didn't want to go to Florida anymore because she had to ask me. So finally, the temptation between seeing beaches up against that irritation of me, she broke down. She came and asked me if she could go. I said, yeah, okay, I'll give you a ride, but there's space for that much luggage. That much, no more. I was a prankster, right? So here she came on the day out to the car. I opened up the trunk of the car, the boot if you're in England, opened it up, grabbed her bag, plenty of space. Threw the bag in, let's go. So she wasn't really happy with me. Anyway, we got to talking. She kind of got over it all and found out I wasn't so bad. And I fell under her spell very quickly. And, next thing you are, 32 years later. Where was this story going? Oh, yeah. So we came back. This is Christmas holidays. So we came back. And I said, hey, do you want to, I just got back too. You want to get something to eat? Okay. So out we went to Pizza Hut, that famous, posh, expensive restaurant, right? Went down to Pizza Hut. I said, do you want some pizza? She says, no, it's okay. So in my culture, you refused. I said, okay, great. I'll have a medium pizza. She don't want anything, okay? Something to drink? Oh, so I learned later that was her polite way of refusing. She was very hungry, poor thing. I sat there eating my pizza in front of her. A greedy person I am. I know. Yeah, this is how you learn culturally. So anyway, I just think this is a great verse because it brings it down to reality. You bring the guests by and you don't serve them hot dogs that are kind of half no good anymore. You give them good food, right? But don't go counting the costs. And yeah, it's annoying to have people in your home. Sometimes they laugh funny. Every time she laughs, I think I'm going to punch her. I can't stand it. Or, this one's always talking about their job. It's so bold, so arrogant. Always, I did this and I did that and I did this and I can't stand them anymore. So that's part of hospitality, isn't it? Let's not pretend like it's all just sweet and we make food and we just fellowship around Jesus and eat this food together. Sometimes it's not fun. Living in England, we had a lot of Pakistanis and Indians and Arabs in the home, and if you're around Arab people at all, I love Jewish people. Got a lot of Jewish friends, but that'll get me started on some other stories. But when you get together with Arab people, first thing you do when you get together is you give the Jews a kick. Right? It's just it's the way every conversation starts off. The Jew, they cheat. I tell you everything, they cheaters. And they go on to some story about cheating and you go, yeah, I know. You want some food? Yeah, let's have some food. So nobody's angry. Nobody's feeling bad. Just what happens, right? So sometimes I get tired of all that. Like, hey, give the Jews a kick. I can give you a kick. But anyway, you don't do that because you want to win them to the Lord. Where's this conversation going? We will finish with some Bible verses. This is just part of our definition. So we can see philoxenia, right? Showing kindness toward people that are foreigners. And don't think of that as just they got another passport. It might be even in a setting like this. They're just not part of us. Not part of our church. So when we were doing church in England, our services started at 10:30. They went till 4:30 or 5. You say, oh, you guys were so spiritual, worshiping Jesus. Nah, we stopped around 12, but then people always brought food, and we were in this old shut-down nightclub. So it had a big bar. We took all the draft taps out. Don't worry. We had to return all the draft. I don't know what you call this equipment in America. Kegs. The taps, the kegs, we had to return all that. That's copyright. That's kind of owned by others. We had to return all that stuff. But we had this big kitchen and big bar, and people always brought food. Always, always, always. Somebody's birthday, bring food. Yeah. Great. It's Diwali. Bring food. Somebody's getting baptized. Bring food. So we would stay from about 12 until about 4:35, eating food, and that was ministry time. And so my precious little wife would walk around, and as she would see people that were newer, and they would be standing on their own, as happens in church, right? You stand there. Nobody's saying hi. Yes, it happens. It happens, right? And so she would go up to a couple of folks that knew each other, had been there a while, and she'd give them a nudge and say, hey, nobody's talking to them, go. So that was sort of her job most of the time, was walking around nudging people, and they pay attention to them, watch out for them. And why? Because she's thinking in her mindset of hospitality. We want them to feel welcome, warm, food in their belly, they're hearing about Jesus, and they're happy. That outsider feels welcomed here and happy here, and they want to come back. If they're a Hindu, a Muslim, they don't know the Lord. If they're a believer, but they're just don't even know why they're at church because they don't want to go to church anymore, but for some reason they've come, and there they are, and somebody's showing that kind of warmth and kindness and says, hey, can we pray? And you don't know what that does. So anyway, get me started on stories. Just a couple of other Bible verses. Notice here the Jew-Gentile tension in the New Testament. This is the book of Acts. Peter says these words. Peter says these words as a Christian, as a believer in Christ, after the resurrection, after Pentecost, Spirit-filled, born-again believer. You know it is against our laws, Peter said, for a Jewish man to enter a Gentile home. Now, there are people just like this today. They may not come to your home for a number of reasons. So we have to also come to terms with that. It's not always our fault. It's just their religion or whatnot. In fact, there's a guy and his wife who came for our very first Bible study. We had been in England for 5 years and felt God leading us to start a church. So we started this church. First Bible study. She was from Iraq. He's from Jordan. When I left, she was a believer at that point when we left the country, and he wasn't. And really good friend, Jordanian Muslim guy. So we went for lunch. He said, listen, I have to tell you something. First time you invited me in your house, I was watching. What kind of pictures does he have on his wall? How much alcohol he's got in his refrigerator? How does he treat his wife? Now, you may feel free to drink alcohol or not, but when you're having other people in your home, you have to remember it's what they think too. And for a Muslim man, here's what he was thinking. He told me what he was thinking. If this man drinks, is rough with his wife, has pictures I don't agree with on his walls, I'm not sending my wife to his house. But he came in, and just by being in the home, I didn't know he was inspecting, but he was inspecting. He's looking around, he's kind of watching. Who is this guy gentle with his wife? And blah, 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 blah. That opened up the door for him to be able to continue. So, Peter says it's very difficult. So, again, another verse on that. I think this verse is really interesting from Matthew chapter 25. You know this verse. The Son of Man comes, sets up his glorious throne. Listen to the words that he expresses. Come, blessed children of my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you. Listen to the words of hospitality. I was hungry, you gave me something to eat. I was thirsty, you gave me something to drink. I was a sinner. I was a foreigner, I was a Gentile. I was a foreigner, and you invited me in. Isn't that amazing? So think about your extension of hospitality to others. You're serving the Lord in doing that. So, okay, I think we've got enough verses here. I'm going to stop at this point with our time that's remaining and give you a couple of quick tidbit helpful things, and I'm going to pray for us. Number one, within church, we do have to realize that there are people that come in. They're not part of us. They may be looking for church, they may not be. And as you well know, because I'm guessing with most of you, you've been very hospitable. Some of you have, I would say, a very large portion of hospitality. Some of you have shown a lot of hospitality, even though that may not be the thing you're so gifted in. You just do it. And so probably most of us here could be commended and get a pat on the back. And you know how that makes people feel when they're welcomed in. You yourself probably know how it feels when you're not welcomed in, and how much you wish people would open the door and welcome you in. So as a note, I would guess that most people who come here who have looked at the website have not memorized our mission statement, haven't memorized the last series of sermons. Sorry. But it's what happens. I do realize this. Nobody will pay attention to this, a year from now, 5 years from now, what I'm saying. But there's going to be something about being with us that they do recognize. Now, I'm not saying that the website's not important, that our teaching isn't important. That's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying fellowship isn't important. I'm just saying there's something about turning to the outsider, to the guest, about making that extra extended hand, about learning how to ask questions with people, how to find out something from their life, instead of just talking about your own life. So sort of principle number one. I'll give you a quick story with that, and then I'm going to give you one other thing, and we're going to wrap it up with prayer. My wife, once again, being the Miss Queen Bee of hospitality, and some of you know what I'm talking about. You have that gifting. It's your love. It's your desire. All of us, we know what it means to open our home to some degree or another, right? So we had done church for years. She's always showing hospitality to the foreigners that come in. And our son was in Atlanta at the time and studying and trying to find church, right? So he read this one website. It says, we are the most friendly church in the world, Something like that. Join a home group or something like that. So our son went and he saw the website and he went online and put his name in to see if he could join a home group. We got no response back, right? So he was complaining to my darling wife, saying, come on, you go to church and people don't bother shaking your hand, and they got their website up there, sign up to get to be part of a home group, and he was wanting some of that, right? They didn't respond to him. So what does my wife do? She goes online. Starts typing. So I said, what are you doing? Nothing. Just typing something here. Are you sending an email to that church? Type. Are you sending an email to that church? Do not send an email to that church. Send. Did you send an email? No, I sent a Facebook message. All right, you got me on that one. But, she's as a missionary, as somebody, you know what I'm talking about, So we don't want to pick on ourselves, but put yourselves in those positions sometimes when you're an outsider and how much you'd appreciate that hand, just that welcoming hand in. And nowadays, with the cultural shift that we have, you may not feel comfortable having people in your home. I get that. England, they say a man's home is his castle. It is rare when you get into their home for food. Rare. It's just the culture. There's been a shift in our culture. We tend to eat out a lot more. But listen, even that extension to eat out, that extension to go get a coffee, to spend some time with somebody, is an extension of that hospitality. And if the level of hospitality we have in here, which we've been experiencing through the meal train on a Tuesday, and we experience throughout our weeks of living here as a church, if we just sort of lit a fire on that hospitality area, we just ignited it and watch it grow. Watch what God does here. Watch what God does. Watch, because people come and they say, we feel warm here. I feel included here. I'm not an outsider there. They've welcomed me in. And so pay attention to it. If you're somebody who's here, pay attention, ask questions. You might find a couple that comes and the wife feels she fits in, the husband doesn't. It's good to learn those things and reach out and figure, what could we do? What could be an extra step we take? It might be children or the older generation. What are some steps we could take? How could you do something? How could you yourself just say, hey, how do I help there? What do I do? So again, I don't want to scold you. I think we're doing a great job in many of these ways. Yeah? I do. But where can we tweak it? Where can we better it? How could that be something that we see the Lord really use here so that more are feeling welcomed inside?
On behalf of Pastor Dan and the folks at Community, thank you for joining us today at Community on Demand. Feel free to share this link with others, and please know you are always welcome to be our guest during a live service any Sunday morning at our campus in the Woodlands, Texas. For more information, just click on the link www.cbcwoodlands.org. I hope you will again join us at Community on Demand.